one more minute, and then I'm going to officially start this session. Okay, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here. This is a little bit unusual to do this virtual, but we'll do our best to go through a quick presentation and just like to bring everybody up to speed of a little bit the background information, how we worked with the Old Bend Neighborhood Association to work towards this parking district. And then after that, I would like to open it up just very simply to everybody who is in attendance to ask any question they would like to have answered. So if that sounds good, I'll bring up a presentation onto the screen real quick. That should take only about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we have plenty of time to go through questions and hopefully find answers and have a good discussions. And good discussion, not discussions. So in January, I think we started to host a series of community input meetings that were advertised and promoted citywide for all the neighborhood and through all the neighborhood associations to try to get some more feedback from residents and business owners in all neighborhoods of Old Bend, not Old Bend, in all neighborhoods of the city of Bend, to find out what are challenges that some neighborhoods face. We knew from conversations with the neighborhood association that Old Bend was struggling in different areas for different reasons. We knew that areas like, for example, in River West have some concerns, and we knew that other areas are also in Southern Crossing, for example, expressing more challenges. But Old Bend was something that we heard a lot over the last couple of years. And so we wanted to make sure that we have a couple of community input meetings to gather some more feedback. We did those in January and also in February. And from that, we started to approach two neighborhoods, River West and also Old Bend, to ask, would you be interested in working with us? And we approached the neighborhood association to say, would you be interested in working with us to establish a pilot program for a parking district that can see if we can, through a parking district, mitigate and address some of the parking challenges that residents in the area have experienced over the last couple of years. The Old Bend Neighborhood Association was interested. Myself made a presentation to them in March after a couple more conversations with their board and other people on the city staff. And we decided that we feel a parking benefit district, and more on that later, would be the right model to try to tackle this. In our conversations was made very clear that just trying to solve one problem in a street corner here or there will really not work. It will just like push the problem or the parking challenge more down the road. A good example for that is that as downtown has grown, as more events came in, residents of Old Bend close to these areas really started to experience that more, so that somebody that may be living on Delaware not have that much to deal with as somebody living on Broadway or on State or on Congress. With that, we moved forward to more planning. The Old Bend Neighborhood Association had a parking committee, subcommittee that was related to transportation and mainly parking. We started working together to really shape this plan and bring it back to their neighborhood board to decide if they want to move forward with a pilot or not. And to give you a little bit more of a better overview that might be a little bit, hopefully a little bit more, giving more clarification than that what can often be communicated via web, I'd just like to go through this real quick. So in the Old Wind neighborhood, we have specific areas that experience at certain times an influx in parking utilization from external factors. That includes the downtown, shopping district, active recreational parks, and also special events. These factors lead often to unsafe streets, limited parking, and limited availability for parking availability for local residents. So if you look at this map, for example, we try to highlight these areas, and it kind of shows what I already said before, that you have here along Drake Park, which was kind of solved with the 4-hour limits at Riverside Park. You had some concerns there. Those were already addressed. You have this almost like L-shaped or arrow-shaped zone, which is really that immediate area connection to downtown that has a lot of trouble with people parking all day in front of their houses. You have this area around the business areas like Jackson Corner, where you have, but also special events and park visits that people drive in there. You have a lot of campers parking there too. At least that's our information. And then you have down here, this area around Miller's Landing that has gotten, depending on the time of year, and COVID-19 has surprisingly not really changed that a lot. High impact from people that are attending the park, from RVs, campers that are overnighting and literally living on the streets. And then you have this area that is, like I mentioned, Delaware, that might not get that challenging yet, but there's an increase that we have noticed and that we hear from residents that's happening now with the success of the box factory and market of choice. Those people are now infringing into residential streets. With that altogether, really limiting the availability of residential parking for residents of the neighborhood. The biggest complaints that have been collected, and I could go much deeper here, we actually did in these input meetings in January, did a lot of exercises where we did good old-fashioned post-it notes and asked people to like write down what do they experience. And there were plenty of different ones, but it all comes down to these were the top complaints, that there's parking congestions on residential streets. That often happens mainly to the northwest, when there's special events, when you have states like Congress, streets like State, Congress, Terminal, even all the way to St. Helens being occupied with event attendees, and often fire apparatuses and engines can't even come through. That there's often nuisances and sometimes unsafe conditions from people that are parking there. This is mainly related to park visitors or special events as well, but also with people that participate in the nightlife of downtown and then park and then come back and cause a lot of noise and trouble. Downtown employees parking to avoid paying monthly fees. This is not just referred to City of Bend employees. This is mainly to many employees in downtown that do not want to pay for a permit in downtown, and so they move into the residential neighborhood to avoid paying that, and there's no way currently to enforce that. On top of that, rude behavior from park visitors. I have a list of reports on that that I could share or that I could describe that I feel for those residents that have experienced that. I think the resident last night on News Channel 21 explained a little bit, but that's not all. There's much more. And then RVs and campers parking on the streets, blocking the driveways, blocking alleys, but also camping out and leaving their trash and leaving other things. And one of the biggest complaints, which also was the top, so far one of the highest responses in our survey that we did, was the sparse or no parking enforcement that's happening. So our response to all this, and I went into this a little bit in my introduction, was to hold community input meetings, and that in these meetings, there were stakeholders, there were business owners, small business owners, there were residents, and then we formed a working group that included the members from the Old Wind Neighborhood Association via their parking committee, and also as a liaison to City Council member Chris Piper. And out of the work that we did, we recommended to create a parking benefit district pilot program for the Old Wind neighborhood. What's important to notice is that as a result and in reaction or response, not reaction, response to year-long citizens' requests and complaints from residents, the current city council made the creation of residential and business parking districts a council goal. And there were studies that were done, but there were also a lot of resident complaints that led to that. That is part of the current city council agenda and goal. And so that's why this is one thing that we also pursued in moving forward with. So what's a parking benefit district? And this is really, I think, is one that's really important to understand for everybody, for me too, and for everybody involved. The Old Bend Neighborhood Parking Benefit District would be a defined geographic area in which a portion of generated parking revenue is returned to the district to finance improvements that enhance the quality of life and promote neighborhood safety. The area included in the parking district is bounded by the downtown parking district, that's mainly to the north, the Deschutes River to the west, the Bend Parkway to the east, and Arizona Avenue to the south. Now, to explain that a little bit more, in a normal residential parking program, if you go to other municipalities or cities like Boise, Idaho, Corvallis, Eugene, or bigger cities like Portland, they usually set up as a residential parking district and a residential parking program. In that parking district, in a residential parking district, there's parking permits, there's different rules, and the permit fees go to the Parking Services Division, who then uses this to maintain the program and to use it to advance their own projects and their own operational costs. A parking benefit district is different. In a parking benefit district, the district itself needs to be self-sufficient, and the district itself can decide what happens with the majority of the revenue. Meaning, after the costs are covered to operate and maintain and administer the parking district, the remaining funds are split. Currently, we want to make sure that 60% of this money goes back to the parking district, and the remaining 40 stay in the same fund under the Parking Services Division as a reserve for future projects, or for for lack of better terms for right now this conversation, a rainy day fund. What happens with the 60% of funds is that a parking committee will be composed and appointed by the city manager to govern this parking benefit district. That committee is composed out of 5 members out of the neighborhood. The majority of those need to be residents, but it also needs to have business representation. And then there's 3 staff members from the city of Bend that are functioning as a liaison to the city. Very similar to the neighborhood street safety program, this parking committee can now reach out to the residents and says, what ideas do you have that would improve the quality of life in our neighborhood, or improve street safety, or pedestrian safety, or bike safety? Meaning, do we need sidewalks? And I'm just throwing out ideas right now. Do we need to have a slow traffic zone somewhere? Do we need a park bench somewhere? Do we want to have an island? Those kind of things. These ideas are citizen-driven ideas. They need to come from the residents of the neighborhood. The committee has to govern them. The residents of the district then have to vote on them. And then these funds are made available to be used on those projects. They do not go to the general fund of the city. They do not go to advance any street improvement projects from the Street Operations Division or any other city departments. What we are hoping to do, and the goals of this district, are to prioritize parking availability for Old Bend residents. So we want to start a residential parking permit program where residents of the Old Bend neighborhood would require parking permits to park on the street, visitor permits, in-district employee permits, and a bunch of different permits for service vehicles, all those things we would make room for. But the top priority is to make sure that who lives in Old Bend and comes home to work can find parking. And this is also future oriented, because the downtown parking strategic management plan, the transportation plan, many other like master plans and planning for the downtown core eventually talks about bringing paid parking into downtown. And this is my personal opinion, but I'm sharing that with you, is that it's really, really important for me as the Parking Services Division Manager, and also for the Downtown Parking Advisory Committee, to make sure that we have somewhat protection in place for the neighborhoods before those things happen, because we are afraid that what we see right now in Old Bend with certain areas experiencing influx in parking challenges would only get more once downtown changes their rules. We also would implement more time-restricted parking around small business corridors and parks. So think McKay Park, where we established a pilot for a year to do 4-hour parking restrictions, and that solved a whole bunch of issues, and now it's being made permanent. We will make sure that these new rules are actually enforced by effective parking enforcement, and we're actually reinvesting in restructuring how we're doing parking enforcement, not only in downtown, but citywide to be able to do that. And we are entertaining the idea of future on-street parking in certain areas, not everywhere, but mainly around commercial areas and special event parking areas to make sure that those attendees of special events at Drake Park, or even maybe potentially floaters on the river, actually have a place where they are allowed to park, but they also can pay for that. So that when tourists and visitors that come to the neighborhood, that they do their fair share and that it doesn't all fall onto the residents. This is the map. I think everybody attending now probably made themselves familiar with that and looked on the webpage as well, but just to real quick explain this a little bit more. The green areas are those recreational areas around the public parks that would have 4-hour times, time-restricted parking. What's important to note is that what we want to do is actually pair this to the opening hours of the park. That means once the park closes at 10 p.m. at night, there is no parking for non-residents, which means now we have a tool that actually enables us to enforce campers and RVs that are parked there overnight, because right now we can't really do that. We have these blue areas that we're proposing for the special event flat fee areas. That would be hybrid areas where it would be still priority parking for residents. However, during a special event, also an event attendee would be able to park there. We would manage this via signage and mobile pay options. The yellow is the 2-hour time parking that is currently established in the downtown core. We would expand it over here around Jackson Corners and around Active Culture, and actually most likely after conversations with some business owners over here as well in the Northwest Hill corridor, where we have some businesses as well. Then the purple area is what we are proposing in the immediate as also a time zone. And then eventually we feel with so many successful businesses down there, this could become paid parking as well to get a little bit more turnover down there, because currently what we see is that mainly employees and other people park there all day. And we know from conversations that this is even, that Arizona and Colorado is even used by downtown employees, because they know nobody's enforcing them, they can park there all day. And everything that's orange would be priority residential parking. And what that means, to put that in context, if you did take a look at the map that's on the webpage and you click on your street, you see that we measured the curb faces and we calculated how many spaces are available there. So in this map, it translated to about 76,000 linear feet of available parking in the Old Bend neighborhood, which translates down at 25 foot per square foot to roughly 3,030 parking spaces. Out of those, we would make 2,600 and a few residential parking only. And the other 400 would be either way recreational parking, business parking, or hybrid parking. So clearly prioritizing parking availability for residents. As of today, and this is a report that I pulled just about an hour before this meeting, when I finalized this presentation. As of today, these are the details from the survey. As of today, we have received 250 survey responses. We're working on getting those onto the webpage too, so that everybody can review them ongoing, and that will be a live tool that will be updated regularly. To some of our questions, for example, average 4-hour time limits around, like, do we want to have a 4-hour time limit around Miller's Landing? The average response right now, 3.94. That is the rating out of 5. Yes, absolutely. 1, no, absolutely not. That's at 3.94. The average for residential permits is currently at 3.7. The average for time restricted parking around Arizona and Colorado is at 3.3. For special event parking, 3.2, and for average and the consistent enforcement, 4.2. We can, and I am not able to share this yet because we don't have those reports yet, but we hope to do that soon, that we can see clear a relationship between where people live, how they responded to this, which is normal, which is understandable, because if I don't experience an issue where I live, then I might not care so much about what others think on the other end of the neighborhood. To the question, is parking in your neighborhood a challenge? Out of the 250 responses, a good half, 125 responses said a clear yes. Another 30% said sometimes, and 20% so far said a clear no. And there's a clear response rate between the no responses to not being in favor of district as well. And here, this is as of an hour ago, the 250 responses we have received. We have 172 responses that said, yes, I'm in favor of the district. And we have 31% or 68.8%. And we have 78 responses, 31% that said no. And why I'm sharing this is because our goal is to get at least half of the residents of Bend to Old Bend, that, or the households that we were able to officially contact via a postcard to respond, and to make a decision. And only if the majority of residents are in favor will we move forward with creating of the district. If the majority of residents are not in favor, we are going back to the drawing board and see if we need to do a smaller district, if we need to draw different geographic lines, or if we need to readjust something. But I think so far, even in conversation with people that are a little bit on the fence, I think the support is there, but the how we get there might need to be adjusted. And that's why we're doing these conversations. That's why we are setting it up the way we do, via a ordinance and a city and a pilot program where we can make adjustments as we go. Okay, sorry, now I'm exhausted from sharing this, and I try to do it as quick as I can to get everybody up to speed. And but now I will. What questions do you have? What concerns do you have? And I will. Okay, thanks Juan for unsharing me. Juan will manage this. If somebody has a question, please just raise your hand, and I'm hope that I can answer everything to you, and we have a good conversation about this.
All right. Thank you, Toby, and thank you to those of you who are joining us today. My name is Juan Almeida. I'm with the IT department at the City of Bend, and I will be assisting with managing your questions. And so we've posted here some instructions. If you would like to join us and ask a question, please follow the instructions that you are seeing on the screen. For those of you who are joining us via phone, you are welcome to use the keypad on your phone, and please press the star key followed by the number 3 to raise your hand. We'll be able to see your hands, and then we're going to start calling on you in the order that we see hands raised. So I see Diana Spring. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your microphone. So please go ahead with your question.
Hi there. I represent probably about 6 homes in the Old Bend neighborhood. And my question is about part-time homeowners who don't live here. They have lots of questions for me because I'm managing their homes for them about how they get a parking pass for their homes, as well as when their homes are being used as short-term rentals. So I'd like a little bit more information on the part-time homeowner and also how parking passes for short-term rentals will be issued.
Okay, that's a great question. So the entire system will be an online digital system. So anybody who feels they need a permit, whether that's somebody who lives in the home or it's like what you said, a part-time homeowner, can go online and register their vehicle if they need to and get a permit. And when I say if they need to, what I mean with that is that if there are, in some areas, we have more homes in Old Bend that have driveways, alley access, and garages that might not need an on-street permit, where in some areas we don't have that, and people are required to park on the street and will need a permit. In regards to short-term rentals, the Parking Benefit District makes accommodations for short-term rental permits. It's going alongside their short-term permit license, meaning that if a short-term rental has properly been approved and has a license to operate as a short-term rental, some of them could satisfy the parking requirements that are in the City of Bend code, which means one parking space per bedroom via their off-street parking or their driveway. Some needed to utilize and are able to utilize 50%, could offset 50% of the parking requirement if that on-street space is available. So if a short-term rental has a permit and utilizes an on-street space for their permit, they can apply for a short-term rental permit. That permit has a higher fee. The fee is not 100% determined yet because we are really still gathering feedback on that, and the fee resolution will be part of the second reading in the council meeting. But it's probably going to be more around like between $10 and $20 per month, mainly based on the reason that we feel that often there's a lot of change, meaning there's more frequent changing in the vehicle information, and the system still needs to be administered from our end to like make those changes to the permit, so it has higher administrative involvement, and also that it's a business that's generating the revenue should be able to contribute a little bit more. Do you feel that answered your question? Do you have a follow-up question on that?
I think that's good information. That does help a lot. I wonder, so let's say the homeowner comes into town, they can just go online, register their vehicle, and pay for their permit. And if they're staying in a home that's registered as a short-term rental, even though they own it, they'll do the $10 to $20 per month to register it.
So let me clarify this a little bit more. So all permits, whether they are residential or short-term rental, are annual permits.
Okay.
So it's good for a year. So if you are a part-time owner and you register your vehicle, whenever you come, if you have the permit, you can always park because it's a virtual permit. It runs with your license plate number and it's good. Same is due for the short-term rental. It's an annual permit that gets renewed. There's a renewal phase at the end of the year. It's always by calendar year, January through December, because it makes it much easier for everybody to remember and to handle. And that it gets renewed annually. But it still requires you to renew it yourself. Certainly, we don't want to auto-renew it if you're moving or if you don't use it the same way anymore.
Okay, so residents and or renters will need to associate the permit with their license plate number, basically.
Correct. And that's the way the license plate needs to be registered to the address. And we'll definitely make sure that there will be cases where somebody just moved somewhere and they don't have their car registration changed yet. And so we'll make sure that we allow like a note from a landlord that says, yeah, this is a tenant here, they're moving in on this date, so that we can help people with that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have a calling user. I'm gonna read the area code and the first 3 digits of your phone number. You're gonna hear 2 beeps after I unmute you. 541350. Please proceed.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for your efforts. This is very welcome in my case. I've lived downtown for 20 years. I live on St. Helens, very close to the family kitchen. And we've had an influx of camping on the street. And obviously the biggest concern is folks will park in RVs, and we just don't know who these folks are. And I have a tenant, I have a rental next door, and they became very annoyed by this. They have an 11-year-old child, and they just don't know who is parking right out in front of their street. And I'm sure you understand the situation. And I just wanted to say thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Next, I have Brian Peterson. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute your microphone. Brian, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for calling in.
Where's the rest of the council?
This is not a council meeting. This is just a Q&A so that people can ask questions about the proposal and we can discuss it and get feedback.
Okay, well, that makes sense because none of us have been informed or voted on the council. That being said, I would like to say that it seems like you guys completely ignored Florida Avenue, where I live, which Delaware runs parallel, which of course is fine. How were you nominated to run this? You work for the city? Have you ever lived down in this neighborhood?
No, I haven't lived in Old Bend. I'm the parking services division manager, so it's my
Your job, okay.
my job and my job responsibility to work with the neighbors and solve parking challenges.
Okay, so do you have any idea why the east of this district was not represented?
When you say the east of the district, you mean the where you live on Florida Avenue?
Yeah, all the way to Hill Street. We don't know.
Yeah,
We were
I
not.
do know that. I don't know how to answer your question completely, but what I can tell you is that we have worked from the beginning with the Old Bend Neighborhood Association, almost like weekly, bi-weekly meetings. And I do know that the area around like Florida, Northwest Hill, Hood, is that Hood Place up there, the street that bends, Delaware, Sizemore, was actually part of constant conversations, especially because Northwest Hill has also business owners, has a lot of dense residential population. So yeah, we did talk about that a lot. I wouldn't know who on the Old Bend Neighborhood Association board would like represent certain areas. I know that one of their board members
None of
lives
us
on
do.
Sizemore, but
I mean, we didn't even get a poll. No one came here to talk to anybody on this side of the district. We got ample parking. I don't understand why we should be part of this.
yeah, that's a good point. I think the main reason why we decided to expand the parking district pretty much neighborhood wide was because in the experience of not only in Bend, common in the creation of parking districts or in solving parking management challenges is that often when you implement something on one street, the challenge that was there, the behavior moves, right? So if you have people right now, I can't give you a good example over there. I admit that, and I don't want to make one up because that's not what I do. But I can give you an example from like Broadway, for example, right? So
Yeah, Bill
if
Jackson
we,
Corner.
yeah, or Jackson's Corner. So if we have a lot of event attendees that park there because they're attending an event on Drake Park and they move their way down, right? They start on Riverside Boulevard, then they go State, Riverside, all those things until they end up in Delaware. And if we prohibit that without solving it somewhere else, they're just going to go more down.
How would you enforce that?
We are actually restructuring the parking enforcement contract that we have with our parking enforcement contractor for downtown.
You just give a ticket and walk away.
Yes, enforcement means there will be citations written and hope that through that behavior changes.
Do you know the Bend City Police policy for squatters? I do.
Okay, you have to help me out with that?
You have to call the police if you have a squatter. Then they say you call back in 3 days if they're still there. Then they will try to make contact, and they said you have to give them 2 more days. And then, if not that, they have to figure out some way to get them out, which often
and do you know
days and days.
Not that I want to interrupt you, but that one of the main reasons for that is that there are no other parking rules that can be enforced.
That's
currently,
not true.
No?
The police cannot legally kick them out right away. How feasible could you do that?
So let me give you an example. And then I'll give you an example that I think will explain this a little bit more. Once there is a rule that only allows for residential parking on your street. If a camper is parked there, they can get a violation. once they get a violation and they get more than done, the fee only multiplies. In a timed area, and this is current city code that can be enforced, if you get 3 timed violation consecutively, so meaning you're parking in a 2-hour or 4-hour area, and for example, the example of, to use your words, a squatter parking there and get a citation after 4 hours, and they get another one after 4 hours, another one after 4 hours. City code allows for them to be towed. The problem is,
if there's other busy parts of town, the towing company's not going to come. The police aren't going to come. I mean,
no. So the major thing that you and our discussion right now is the lack of parking enforcement, which I agree with you. But from the point of,
obviously,
I can't speak for the police. I know that sometimes what they're running into is that the 3-day rule is a city ordinance, which talks about that an unregistered vehicle that's considered an abandoned vehicle that's parked on the road for 72 hours more can be towed. And they need to put a notice on it, and then there are a notice it, and then they can tow it. The trouble that we're running in with a certain group that I don't want to name, but the trouble that we're running into, and I think everybody here knows that, is that if somebody's in the vehicle, they're legally not allowed to tow it. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different issue than the one we're hoping to solve only with the parking district. But what I can tell you is, by establishing some of these parking rules that we want to do to manage, or parking strategies and management strategies, we can eliminate some of this behavior, because now we actually enable a tool to enforce it.
just one more question and I'm done. Sorry to keep you so long.
No, that's okay.
I did
That's why we're doing it.
I did the math. So say 500 residentials, 60 in district, 200 visitors for 14-day passes is $18,000, and to employ 3 minimum wage before taxes is $1,500. So where's the money? So
these are annual permits. So that's one thing you should put in the equation. So if you take your 1,500 multiplied by 12, your numbers look a little bit different. But so these are all annual permits. So the fee for the residential permit is an annual permit for the entire year. And the hope is that what I said, I don't know when you logged on, but it's a parking benefit district. So which means the money all goes into a parking district fund for Old Bend.
$3,000. But anyway, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later, man. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, thank you. Next, we have another phone caller. I have 541-408. You're gonna hear 2 beeps after I unmute you. Please proceed. 541-408. You should have heard 2 beeps. Go ahead with your question. All right, we'll come back. Next, I have Kayla Ritola. Go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine.
Perfect. I live off Delaware Street, and I've lived here for 12 years now. I've never had an issue with people parking in front of my house, and I understand this is going to apparently go all over, not just our neighborhood, but I did have a few concerns. I guess we're not going to do a trial where everyone who lives here just gets a free parking pass for the year to see if it works for the first year before we start getting charged?
The quick answer to that would be no. The longer answer to that would be that it is set up as a pilot program. We don't have the fees set in stone yet. There is, I don't want to speak for the parking committee or for everybody involved, but I want to speak from my point of view a little bit, and as the one like helping them guided. I think there is an option to have lower fees, token fees, and anything that neighbors want to do, and then to help evaluate the district with that. And I think that's the idea. Although I can tell you, yeah, that would be a great idea to don't charge, but what I can tell you is there is still opportunities to shape it, because we are setting it up as a pilot program to actually exactly do that, to evaluate how does it work? Does it achieve what we want to do? And even more than that, that district committee will have to meet regularly to like measure it, right? So we want
Right.
to we're actually trying to find a way to make this, and I know I'm going to say the bad word that somebody who works for the government can use. We want to make it as transparent as we can to
Yeah.
make sure that we actually have a web page that shows the data that we're collecting. One thing that's important to notice, there are upfront costs to get it up and running, right? So to do this, we need to install proper signage. We need to make sure that people are there. So even if we are not charging, if we wouldn't charge for permits, there still would be costs that the district would accrue, meaning.
Okay, so aside from putting just the cost of it all, so you're gonna put signs up down the street
Yeah.
saying this is, you have to pay to park here. Don't
Not
you
to
think
pay to
a
park
better
here, but
idea-
it's like, it will be
I
signs
think-
that say there's residential parking only or whatever the rules are.
Don't you feel like maybe a better starting point would be to put up a speed limit sign, because our neighborhood is frequently bombarded with people speeding really, really fast and running the stop sign? And it's specifically at the corner of Sizemore and Delaware. It's one of the gnarliest it's a really, really bad intersection. And I
Yep.
feel like before we worry about who's parking where, it would be a better idea to worry about safety and maybe install sidewalks while they're going to install these signs, instead of just having only Delaware Street have sidewalks. And that intersection is out of control. And I think this is not the way to start fixing our neighborhoods. I think it's more about, there's not a single speed limit sign on any of our streets, and people drive way too fast. The police don't patrol it very often. So someone's going to monitor people parking all of a sudden.
So a good answer, I think, is I think what your comment and your feedback is really well reserved and well received as well. I can speak for the speed signs because that's not part of this plan, like you just noted yourself, and it's also not part of like what I do necessarily.
Right, I
However,
understand that. I'm just saying,
yeah,
if we're going to be spending a lot of money on our city, I think parking in a very residential area is like the bottom of the totem pole on where we need to be spending our city's budget. We should probably be focusing more on this massive intersection issues and all the money that could be spent on making our neighborhoods safer. And parking on Delaware, Florida, Georgia, it's not an issue. And if it is an issue, then maybe the city should focus on buying up some property and putting in parking structures for the people who make a minimum wage downtown to have a place to park, instead of them parking on the streets that are causing the issues.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think the one thing that the way we chose to set this district up is that actually you would have the ability to have that, to offer this up as an idea and utilize this money that the district generates to actually install those speed bumps and install the signs. And I'm not sure about sidewalks because that's cost a lot of money, but I know that what you just mentioned, that would be a great program, a great project to be financed through the revenue that's generated from the benefit district. The whole idea is that the district is self-sufficient. There's no general fund money that's going into the creation, that's going into funding. It needs to pay for itself. And then on top of that, it creates the benefit of having the funds available to do citizen desired projects, right? So a project like you just described would be ideal. I completely understand when you're saying that, well, Delaware doesn't have these parking challenges. I agree that you probably don't where you are right now, but I can tell you that some of your neighbors.
Uh-oh. I don't know if I lost connection or if you lost connection, but I can't hear you anymore.
Yes, I apologize. It looks like Toby might be. Oh, here he's back.
Oh, there you go. I can see you now.
Oh,
Thank
where
you.
did you? So I'm not sure when you lost me, but what I said is your ideas are good. I think they're valuable, but I do also think that there are some people that live also in Delaware that I've personally talked with. They do experience people parking in front of the house every day, from employees that work at the box factory or market of choice. And I do think your ideas are great. They could be financed with this benefit district, which is the reason why we're setting it up like that. And I think somebody like you who has these great ideas should be part of a citizen committee that governs this district to make sure it's transparent, so to make sure that these things can be done.
Okay, in regards to that market of choice and box factory, then I did see the thing on there that if you work within a certain area of the streets, that they're going to give parking permits to people who work nearby our streets. So now they'll be allowed to park here.
No, yes and no. So meaning the in-district employee permit was important because we wanted to make sure that if you, let's say, if you take Jackson's Corner, if you work at Jackson's Corner, you come to work, you need to be able to park somewhere. You're technically not a resident, so you wouldn't be able to get a permit. But with this in-district employee, which you would be able to park on the block of your place of business. Meaning, somebody who works at Market of Choice would be able to park on Colorado and Arizona with that. And there would be a limit on how many parking permits would be available for there. And quite frank, my opinion is that if you would run out of those, it would be the employer's responsibility to make sure that their staff that can't get a permit can park on their own lot, you know? So I think we want to make sure that they can park right on their block, but don't go into the neighborhood anymore, if that makes sense. And that's kind of the same with your comment that you made about the downtown minimum wage employee. We feel that we're already like offering for that type of employee, we're offering a monthly permit for $10 to park. That's compared to the other permits in downtown very fair. Some people choose to not do that. And the hope now, if this district comes to fruition, they won't be able to park on Old Bend streets anymore or risk getting a ticket for $50. And I think now that will actually help to communicate to employees of downtown to say, look, that neighborhood is off limits now. If you park here, it's only cost you $10 or $20 a month. And I think that what I know from like experience in other districts like this, that really made a difference and increased the business district employees to purchase a permit.
Okay, I just had one last question then. We have a plethora of vacation rentals in our neighborhood. Are they getting charged more to get a permit instead of just being a resident?
Yes. They're getting, so the fee is not completely set in stone, but it's a minimum. The conversation right now goes around a minimum of $150 a year, all the way up to higher amounts. And I think that was really, really important because it was important that when we charge, if we want to charge residents a permit fee, we need to charge businesses as well. It just wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, and then this is the meeting for the Q&A. Do you guys have a projected date on when this is actually going to come into be a thing, or is it still not sure if it's even going to be a thing?
So you're asking really good questions. So on the next council meeting, we'll have the first reading of the ordinance. And then if that goes, if the council decides on that, and there's a second reading would be in the middle of September. And then it would take a good amount of time to actually implement it, because in the city manager policy that the ordinance would authorize the manager to implement this pilot program. And in the city code that governs that, there are timeframes built in how to inform neighbors that live in the district of what's happening, inform all the businesses, and also informing businesses and residents that live within 500 feet of the district border for the same thing, to like inform them what's coming. So I think the goal would be to start implementation in October. Realistically, that's a probably 4 to 6 week period to implement until it would go up and running.
Okay. I didn't know anything about this until my neighbor heard from a so-and-so who heard from so-and-so that I should probably get on here and look at this. Are you guys going to be informing everyone who's directly affected when these meetings are so that we can have our opinion heard?
Yeah, so we sent out the postcard. There was an official postcard from the city that was sent out 2 weeks ago to all households that we had on file. And we sent it to households on purpose because Old Bend is has a very low density of, or has a high rate of, no, how do I say it the right way? Has a low rate of owner-occupied property. Sorry, it's like complicated sometimes.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that the postcard informing people about this process goes to every household because we felt we need the representation of tenants as well as homeowners, because the tenants are the ones that are living in the neighborhood. And so we tried to do a lot with social media too and kick that up. And then from the council meeting, I think we'll get more feedback and reaching more out, and maybe send another postcard to also all households to informing them about the process as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for answering my questions. Oh, one last thing. Is there going to be a limit per household on how many cars? If we have 3 cars in the 2-bedroom house, is that we'll get permits for all of them for $30 a year?
You can get a permit for every vehicle that is registered to your address. We are still entertaining, like I said, there's still some ideas, and that's why we want to gather as much feedback as we can about, like, hey, do we want to do like a 2-for-1, or do we want to do like a reduced fee for the second or third car? But you can, if the vehicle is registered on your address, then you can get a permit for that.
And each car is the $30 fee.
Yes, currently that's the idea, but we're also already entertaining lower fees to get it started, just not free yet. So,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let someone else ask a question then. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next, I have Peter Geiser. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, actually, my question just got answered, so you can move on to the next person.
All right, thank you, Peter. Next, I have Carrie Kaplan. Go ahead, Carrie.
Hi, thanks. I missed the first 5 minutes, so maybe you addressed it, but why parking, why license plate registration instead of, say, a placard that could be transferred vehicle to vehicle?
Yeah, good question. So there's a 2-part answer. The 1-part answer, license plate recognition, because it makes the enforcement more effective and more affordable. So to give you an idea, we were cautious to not try to overburden the district, that the district we want to create with enforcement costs, and then have to overburden the residents with too high permit fees. Meaning the difference between that is that by going to license plate recognition, by going to a LPR, license plate recognition system to enforce, we can do can enforce the entire district with 1 staff position that can also enforce other areas. So only that part, the percentage that that person is over there, will be charged towards the district, so to speak. Where if we would do it with a placard, that is for the size of Old Bend we're talking about at least 2, maybe 2.5 or 3 people, and that would make the cost much higher. However, and now is the second part, we are still looking into the option of doing a 2-for-1 permit, meaning where we could say that if you, for example, let's say you have a house where you have a driveway and a garage, and you don't really park every car on the street all the time, that there would be the opportunity, and that would be across the board for everybody, that potentially it's a 2-for-1 permit, where you would be able to log into your system and your account and switch the license plate if you're parking a different car on the street. And that I can tell you from the system that we've chosen, it's super easy to do that. It's like a 5-second process. So it would be very easy to do.
And then the gentleman on Florida alluded to a 14-day permit. So how is guest parking addressed?
Yep, very good question. So every residential permit comes with a guest pass that if you have a guest coming to your house, you can give that to them. You just you log in, put in the license plate number in, or we also want to make actually the guest pass we'll make available for those residents who want as a hard copy pass that can be put on the dashboard. And so that comes with every residential permit. There's also the option to say, hey, I have a gathering at my house, I have a book club, I have a social gathering, I have 10 people coming over Wednesday night for a small group or whatever that it is, that we allow you to enter that and get those day passes, but they will be then very temporary, recognized as temporary passes for the duration of that event.
So it's not like 2-hour parking all the time and then overnight parking by permit only. It's always permit.
No, always permit only. And that was one of the things we wanted to do to actually have a way to enforce cameras. And the visitor, the guest pass is free. There's no cost to it. The additional day or temporary ones, there's no charge for that. And there's a 14-day pass where we say, hey, if you have a family member coming over, or you have somebody coming over who stays with you, friend, for a longer period of time, then there is that pass as an option, so that, because the other ones are really just intended to be day use.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Melissa Barnes. Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, sorry, just trying to unmute myself. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. We have a home on Congress, and I think that my questions specifically are around that blue area and the event parking area. And so my first question is, in terms of when it's not a special event, does that default to the peach, which is the residential permit parking only? Or not. So I want that answered. And then second, just in terms of Bend in general, we have seen such a increase of events. And so what qualifies as an event for this parking zone? And is there any kind of limit on that? So for example, is this Munchin Music, for those 6 Thursday evenings, or is this anytime anyone wants to hold an event in Drake Park? So if you could answer those 2 questions, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah. Those are great questions. So to your first point, yes. If there is no event, and we define that in the second part of my answer, it defaults back to residential parking only. Nobody else is allowed to park. And what constitutes as an event? One of the main reasons we chose to do this approach and go away from the current approach of prohibiting event parking is because in our conversations with the OBNA, in our conversations with fire, in our conversations with PD, what we heard, and from our city, especially event coordinator as well, is that those temporary no parking signs end up in front yards. They be taken down, people putting them in their trunks, and people go in the alleys blocking them, so fire can't go through. Now that causes police to really be in the alleys trying to enforce people leaving there and not being able to enforce a no parking. And so this way, we are able to engage event holders. And yeah, we're talking more an event that has a larger intendant, like a Munchin Music or other bigger celebrations. And this will be part of their application, that when they already a larger event, meaning, I think, don't quote me on that, I would have to confirm that, but I believe it's if you're going over a certain amount of pennies, like 100 or more, you are required to have a parking plan as well. And so you will have to present that. And as part of that parking plan, we will ask you to communicate to your attendees where they can park. And now we have the ability to actually say, look, there's limited capacity available in these areas for a flat fee of $5. But you can also go over here on the Mirror Pond lots and you can park there, or you can go all the way to the county lot on Fayette Street and just walk 10 minutes. So I think it enables us to really engage event organizers and their attendees a little bit more and offer them a variety of options where to park.
Thank you. I think I'm all for a 1 year, let's try this out and learn from it. But I do think I have some pretty big concerns about that. Just 100 or more is pretty small, and that this just becomes a parking zone for all of that blue section. And so I'd love to see us really monitor that data in the next year. And then the other piece was just the VRBO question. And as a homeowner who lives in her home, just really want to make sure that as this conversation progresses, and understanding that VRBOs are in fact businesses that are allowed to operate in our neighborhoods, that there aren't loopholes put in place to allow multiple cars onto our neighborhood streets, which is already a problem due to the grandfathering of most of the VRBOs. And so just really want to make sure that we hold this parking district stance, that our business partners who are VRBO owners have to pay their fair share, and that we don't have loopholes that allow for VRBOs to overcrowd this parking district.
No, I think that's a really good point, and I can tell you that, and I think the OBNA is okay with me sharing that. This is something we wrestled a lot. They had some members and people that participated in the planning who were very, very strong-willed, strong-minded, and strong-walled in a good sense to make sure that we pay attention to that. And after looking at it a little bit more, we realized that we do need to respect and honor the license and the license requirement and application process for an STR, or like for vacation rental. Let's call it that. It's easier for everybody to understand. Sure. And that we, in the beginning, we said, do we just offer one parking permit only? But if a vacation rental was permitted with 2 on-street spaces, we would, by allowing them only one, we kind of like would be in conflict of that code. But we will not issue more permits to them than they used on their application. So meaning if a vacation rental utilized 2 on-street spaces for their license, they can get 2 permits. That's it, not more. If they feel they just need 1, they can just apply for 1, but they will need 2. And the fee is higher already right now, planned to be higher, much higher than the one for the resolution.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have Nancy. Nancy, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm an owner resident, and I live right across the Market of Choice, and things are really challenging there. I have employees park in front of our home every day, all day long, but I really don't like this parking district idea. I feel like really it just geared like just a real not in my backyard thing, specifically towards vehicle dwellers. And I feel like we really cater to the haves in this neighborhood to begin with. And we already pay for these streets, and everybody that lives in this town pays for these streets. And I find it really frustrating. And I guess I don't really have a question. I just have, since I got the postcard, I've really not felt very happy about this, and especially just the picture on the postcard being, 3 vans in a row. Yeah, and I don't really have a question, just wanted to comment on there.
Okay, that's appreciated. And this is the opportunity for everybody to do that. And I encourage you that you actually take the survey and indicate on there that you're not in favor. This needs to be a citizen-driven decision if the district is happening or not. So that's exactly what we hope for.
Yeah, and I did take the survey.
Thank you.
And encouraged all my neighbors too, and all of our household members took it as well. So.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you. Next we have, I'm going to try our phone caller one more time. I have, let's see, 541-408. I'm going to unmute your microphone. You're going to hear 2 beeps. Please go ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, this is Medell Fries. We live on the corner of Riverside and Cannabis across from Drake Park, and parking has been a challenge here for more than just the last couple years, but especially the last 5 with all the floaters in the summertime, businesses, et cetera, et cetera. I have two questions. It was really, really helpful 2 summers ago. This is the 3rd summer, I believe, to put up the 4-hour parking signs at Drake Park. That has really helped. But I wondered why the signs do not say no overnight parking. Lots of times in the evening, somebody's there at 9 p.m. and they're still there at 6 a.m. when I get up in the morning, and no tickets I do not see on their windshields. I do call Diamond Parking, but it seems to be getting worse again. It was really good for a while, and now it seems to be getting worse. And do you know why it does not say, oh, no overnight parking? And then the other question I had So if we had a group of 10 people coming here for a meeting for 2 hours or 3 hours, maybe whatever it might be, then I need to get all of their license plates in order to get a parking permit for them to park on Canvas, because there is no parking on our side of Riverside. It's the bike lane, in order for them to come here for 2 or 3 hours. Is that correct? Have you thought of just issuing each owner some guest permits that were tied to their license plate that could be used over, instead of having to get a new one every time, if it's not an overnight parking, if it's just in the daytime or evening?
Yeah, good question. So there will be two options. So there will be the option of you being able to do those if you like and prefer via the online system and do it via license plate, or there's the option also for a hard copy version of it that you can get. I think we're trying to figure out how we're doing that, but I think most likely the current best idea we have is that, let's say you have an event at your house, like a meeting, a book club meeting, or whatever the like, that you can reach out to Diamond Parking and tell them, hey, we have an event Wednesday night from 7 to 9. I have 10 people coming, 8 of them will come with cars. I need 8 extra parking passes. And then Diamond Parking can issue those temporary parking passes to you for that precise time. And then you have the choice if you can have that emailed, where you just print them out yourself and give them to your guests when they come and they can put them on the dashboard, or you can go pick them up as an alternative to the license plate one. And that is something we thought about would make it much easier for some of our residents, instead of having to deal with like collecting everybody's license plate number.
Yes, yes.
And
then
so
the other question was about why the parking
overnight
at Drake Park does not say 4-hour limit, no overnight parking.
Yeah.
You would think 4-hour limit would specify no overnight parking, but I guarantee people are parking all night.
I know. And so I know that a couple of weeks, so I will answer that in a second. I know that a couple of weeks ago, we started actually changing the enforcement schedule for Diamond Parking, where one of their officers, agents, enforcement people, I don't want to offend anybody who's calling in who might have a different way to call them, stayed on until 11 p.m. actually, to be able to monitor Riverside, McKay, and Miller's Landing already, to make sure that there's nobody overnight. I don't know why that wasn't passed when that was done. I do know that within the district, the idea is, and the plan is, to pair the 4-hour recreational parking areas, like the one at Riverside Boulevard and the future ones hopefully at Miller's Landing, to the opening hours of the park. And the official closing time is 10 p.m., which means that would already mean there's no overnight.
Is there a closing hour at Drake Park? If there is, I'm not aware of it. I did hear that Diamond had changed their walking hours, but that was about 2 months ago. Sally Russell said, oh, we've changed with Diamond. They're going to be patrolling Drake Park, Miller's Landing until 11 at night, but I have not seen that occurring. And granted, I'm not looking out the window all the time watching, but I do see cars spending the night.
Yeah, I will follow up with them one more time. I do know that they did that because I do see a report of what time citations are issued. So I do know that they have done that. But I will follow up with them one more time if they're still doing that. They're supposed to still do that. And I will follow up on the opening hours of the parks. I believe most parks actually have official opening and closing hours. Some people are not aware of that, but it is something that we want to pair the 4-hour for the parks to that. And if they don't have that official time, then we'll just add a point to it that says no overnight parking. Because I think go ahead.
If there are hours for Miller Landing and Drake Park, they are not prominently posted, and we've lived here for a long, long time.
Yeah,
and I have never seen anything.
I thought they were. That's why we worded it like that. But I'll look into that. And if not, I think I think the idea from all the conversation we had, all the planning that we did, is that we want to prevent the overnight parking of
Yes.
of certain people, which is why we want to do that. And if we can't do it via opening hours of the park, then we need to do it by defining what times that is allowed.
That's good. Well, thank you, Tobias, and thank you for the time and thoughts that the committee and you and your staff are putting into this. I appreciate it. We're looking forward to things getting better.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, at this point, what I'd like to do is share information with those of you who have already asked your question and you are done and or no longer want to provide a comment. If you're on the phone, you can press the star key followed by the number 3 to lower your hand. And that way we'll know that you are done participating. And for those of you who are joining us live via WebEx, if you've already asked your question, if you want to follow the same steps that you follow to raise your hand, go ahead and lower your hand now. And then I'll wait a few seconds here just to make sure that if we need to address somebody else, we do so. So I'm going to let you lower your hand again. If you press the star key followed by the number 3 on your phone, or if you follow the instructions we have here on the screen for you to lower your hand. All right, let me go back again. I have Diana Spring. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your microphone. Go ahead, Diana.
Hi, thanks for taking me again. I had a question. Since I live in Old Bend, if I have a parking permit and I live on a corner, if I park on, Delaware versus Harriman, how am I going to get a ticket if I park too away from my house, or what's the range for the parking?
Entire district. So the permits are good in the entire district. We're not scaling it down to like your street or your block. And that was important because some areas are more dense than others, and we can't guarantee that you always find a spot right in front of the house. So you can park with your permit in the entire district.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm going to check one more time, back with 541-408. Do you have one more question or comment? I just unmuted your microphone.
Oh,
you should have heard 2 beeps.
I did ask my question. Thank you very much. I asked them. Thank you.
Wonderful, our pleasure. Thank you so much. Toby, at this point, I don't see anybody else waiting to ask a question or provide us a comment.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope it was helpful. We might not agree on everything, but I hope that the information we shared was still helpful. It was certainly helpful for me to get some of your feedback. And you can know that if you have any more questions, just send an email to parking@bendoregon.gov. I'm usually pretty good responding as detailed as I can. And I encourage you to tell the same to your friends. If you have a neighbor who is not sure about this, who doesn't know if they should vote in favor or not in favor, I encourage you to have them reach out to the Open Neighborhood Association or have them reach out to the Parking Services Division. Again, parking@bendoregon.gov, and I will do my best to reach out to them in a good timely manner and answer any question. And with that, I think we can conclude. This WebEx will be available on YouTube, I believe, to be reviewed after. So tell people about it if you feel that would be helpful.
And Toby, I'm sorry, somebody raised their hand here in the last minute. You got a minute to answer one final question? Sure. Thank you so much. Andy, go ahead. I just unmuted you.
Yeah. Hi, thank you. I was looking for the button. So I live in the district, in the proposed district on Delaware, but I have heard concerns from others who live on the sort of edges, but outside, specifically the residential areas on Southwest Bond and Southwest Wall, very much adjacent, I think, to the Century West neighborhood. And how would we have this district not cause really bad effects to the neighborhoods on the edges of this district, where everybody who needs to come to the district parks on the edges, and it creates like a whole difficult situation just outside the edges? I've seen that happen in other residential parking districts I've lived in big.
That's a good question. I'm not sure that I have a 100% good answer for you, but Old Bend is a little bit unique to that, as that you have on the north end, it's downtown, right? So there's not a lot of residential concerns. On the east, you have the Parkway, same there, and then on the west, you have pretty much the river. And then to the north is where, to the south, sorry, to the south is with Arizona and Colorado, where you have a cluster of residential units, mainly in the corner that you just described, that might be affected from that. Be quite frank, this has not been a focus of our planning on that, and I will take that back to the to our planning board and bring it up to what we can do about that. I do understand that. I also don't want to just like give you an answer that wouldn't satisfy you. But I think that it's always a concern. I get that, and it's like you live on this street, there's a district, on that one there isn't one, and how to make room for that. And it's difficult because somebody could say, well, it's as easy as just having a permit for that. Well, really not, because then where do you end, right? So who you give money, who you don't. So it's something that I appreciate the comment. I do not have a good answer for you, but I will make sure that I get that.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you so much. I don't have anybody else, Toby.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, and reach out if you have any more questions. Thank you.